The Echoes of My Name, Episode 2, What We Each Became. Previously, Amara Adeola Ogundele came home from her own promotion dinner to a condo full of silence and dying roses. She opened the photo album she had carried for years, and in the back sleeve of the second album, pressed flat behind decades of forgetting, she found an envelope. Her father's name on the front, a return address in Akure, Nigeria in the corner. She set it on the shelf where she could see it in the lamp's light. She was not ready yet, but she was closer than she had ever been. This Sunday, she is going to tell her siblings. Absence has a sound. It echoes in the shape of everything the missing person should have been. Sunday at Zuri's met the Southside smelling like coffee and something sweet before 8 in the morning. The gospel playlist kept low. The news muted on the television, because Zuri believed in staying informed, but not before noon. Zuri's apartment looked like it belonged to someone who had been everywhere and brought something back from each place. A kente cloth draped over the back of the couch, books organized partly by color and partly by mood. A spider plant so enormous it had taken over the corner by the window, sending shoots toward neighboring furniture like a small and ambitious empire. It was the most comfortable place Amara knew. Elijah was already there, naturally. He existed in a state of perpetual early arrival that had nothing to do with time management and everything to do with wherever food was being prepared. He was sitting at the kitchen island, eating a piece of toast he had clearly obtained through some negotiation with Zuri that Amara had not been present for. When she walked in, he spread his arms wide. "Regional Director enters." His delivery occupied the uncertain territory between a welcoming gesture and a bow. "Sit down," she said. "I am already sitting. I am bowing from a seated position. It is a skill I developed specifically for this moment." He examined her blueberry muffin. "Is that for sharing?" "It is for Zuri." He called toward the bedroom. Zuri's voice carried back. She had heard Amara come in, and from somewhere in the apartment came her particular laugh, the one that started in her chest and arrived without apology. Zuri emerged from the bedroom in her silk robe, locks piled high, wearing her Akure earrings even at 9 in the morning, in her own kitchen, because Zuri believed that adornment was not for the outside world. It was for yourself. Zuri Yetunde Ogundele. Yetunde. The mother has returned. The name carried the Yoruba understanding of the soul's circular journey, the belief that a grandmother who had loved and been loved did not simply end at death, but returned into the family in new form, carrying the memory of the love even without the language for it. All three of their Yoruba names had come from him, their father. He had named them not casually, not as a formality, but deliberately, with the weight that Yoruba tradition placed on the act of naming, as prayer, as prophecy, as the first and most essential gift a parent gives, not the gift of life, but the gift of the words that tell the child who they are meant to become. He had given them the names, and then he had taken himself away. She had spent 42 years trying to reconcile those two facts, had never found the framework inside which a man could name his daughter the crown of wealth, and then leave her to grow up wondering if she was worth anything at all. They ate at the small table by the window. They talked about Elijah's debate team, a show Zuri had been watching, a neighbor of Amara's who had started leaving very specific notes in the lobby about elevator etiquette. Then, at the moment when the plates had been pushed aside and the coffee had moved from necessity to pleasure, Amara reached into her bag. She set the envelope on the table between them. The kitchen went quiet in the particular way of rooms that understand something significant has entered them. Zuri set down her cup. Elijah looked at the envelope, then at Amara, then back at the envelope. "Where?" Zuri said. Not a complete question. The word was enough. Amara folded her hands on the table the way she folded them in difficult meetings. Back sleeve of the second album, pressed flat. It had been there a very long time. It was addressed to him. His name, in handwriting I do not recognize. The return address is in Akure, Nigeria. Elijah leaned forward and looked at the handwriting without touching it. Something moved across his face, a ripple, quickly stilled. He had always been the best of the three of them at feeling things quietly. "Did you open it?" he asked. "No." "Why not?" She looked at the envelope, at their father's name in ink that had not faded. "Because once I do, whatever I have been believing about him has to change, and I was not ready for it to change." She looked up. I am barely ready now. Zuri reached forward and touched the edge of the envelope without picking it up. A careful touch, like reaching towards something that might be fragile. What do you think is in it? She asked. I do not know, Amara said. A letter from someone in Nigeria, someone who knew where he was. What I know is that he had an address, and before this, I only had his name and a country and photographs. Now there is a street address. She looked at both of them. I have been looking at flights. Both of her siblings looked at her simultaneously, with the coordinated attention that confirmed that despite their different approaches to almost everything, they were, in their bones, the children of the same two people. To Nigeria, Elijah said. To Nigeria. He sat back, picked up his coffee, held it in both hands, and looked at the table with the expression of a man processing something he had not prepared himself for this particular Sunday morning. His voice was careful, not discouraging, just careful. We do not know if he is still there. We do not know if he is even... He paused. We do not know much. I know that, she said, and I am considering going anyway. Not necessarily for him, for me. Every time I introduce myself, someone looks at my last name and asks where it is from, and I give the answer I have been giving my whole life. My father was Nigerian. The name is Yoruba. It means the warrior returns home. And then the conversation ends, and I go back to being a woman with a name that connects her to a place she has never been, and a family that may or may not know she exists. I am 42 years old. I have 9 weeks of accumulated vacation time, and there is a return address on that envelope. Zuri was watching her with full attention, not the polite attention of someone waiting their turn to speak, the full, present, older sister attention. Maybe you are not looking for him, Zuri said quietly. Maybe you are looking for the part of you he took with him. Amara looked at her sister. Yes, she said. That is exactly it. Outside the window, Chicago continued its Sunday. A couple walked below, side by side but not touching, in the particular quiet contentment of people who had been together long enough to make silence a form of closeness. I had a name before I had a self, Amara said. Before I had an opinion or a career or a condo or any of the things I have spent my life building. Before any of that, I had Adeola. He gave me that, and then he left. Elijah set down his coffee. He was quiet for longer than he usually allowed himself to be, which was how Amara knew he was saying something that mattered to him in the way things mattered when you stopped performing and let them be real. You know what I remember about him? He said. Both of them waited. His hands. That is it. I was 2 years old, so all I have is this one image. Very large hands that always smelled like soap and something else I never identified. That is my entire inheritance from him. He looked at the envelope. I made my peace with that a long time ago, or I thought I did. But sitting here looking at that, I am realizing maybe the peace I made was just practiced. Like I rehearsed not caring until it felt like the real thing. This was the most honest thing Elijah had said about their father in years, possibly ever. Zuri reached over and put her hand on his arm, and he let her, which was its own kind of measure. If I go, Amara said, I am not going to find him waiting somewhere. I do not think that is what is there. She paused. But maybe there are people, his parents, if they are still, if anyone is still, or even just the place, the land, the address on that envelope. The place we were half made from, Zuri said softly, almost to herself. And that was the sentence that opened it. The sentence that allowed all three of them to feel the full weight of what they had been managing around for the entirety of their adult lives, because it was simply, plainly true. They were half made from a place they had never been, and the half that came from there had been walking around unexamined for decades. Elijah cleared his throat. I hope it is not too hot over there, he said, in the voice he used when emotion had arrived somewhere he had not planned and needed to be relocated. Zuri threw a dish towel at him from across the table. He caught it, grinning, and the grin was tender in the way that Elijah's grins always were when he was holding something he had not found a better container for. You are going, Zuri said to Amara, not a question, a recognition. I am going. Zuri nodded once. Then open the envelope first. Whatever is in it, you deserve to know before you get on a plane. And call Mama. She is going to say you are too old to still be waiting for a man who chose leaving. A pause. She is not entirely wrong. She is also not entirely right. That is Mama's way. What it means, Adeola, is that you are going regardless, that the answer to the question does not change the need to ask it. This was what their father's absence had made of them in the end. Amara, precise, guarded, relentlessly excellent, with an archivist's relationship to the past. Zuri, expansive and seeking, always reaching toward what she had not yet found. Elijah, the keeper of warmth, the one who refilled your coffee, the one who made the joke that gave you permission to exhale. They were all of them, in their different ways, the aftermath of one man's decision. And they were, in their different ways, extraordinary. But Amara was the one who had to go. Adeola, the crown of wealth. She had been named for something she could not yet see. She was going to find out what it looked like from the place the name was born. The crown of wealth. Not wealth in the simple sense, not the accumulation of resources, not the scoreboard of acquisition. The wealth of character, of belonging to something that could not be taken, of knowing exactly whose you were and what that meant. She had spent her whole career accumulating the visible kind. She was going to find out about the other kind. She closed the album. She left the lamp on. And she went to bed with the quiet certainty of someone who has finally stopped waiting for permission and has understood that the going itself is the answer.
She told them. The envelope, the address, the flights she had already been looking at, and Elijah admitted something he had never said out loud. All he has of his father is the memory of large hands that smelled like soap. That is his entire inheritance. Amara is going. That has been decided. But before she books that flight, she has to do two things. Open the envelope and call her mother. Bernice Evelyn Lewis, the woman who survived everything by deciding she would not be destroyed, who built 3 children on the architecture of that decision, who has been holding her own kind of truth for 42 years. She is not entirely wrong, and she is not entirely right. And Amara is going to call her anyway. Episode 3, Bernice. Subscribe so you do not miss it. The echoes of my name.